This is going to be fun. I am so happy to introduce you to a brand new series here on Pennies into Pearls, where you get to look into another Pearl's real life budget strategies and life lessons that they've picked up all along the way. Learning how other families are making it work is always a top way to keep our own motivation up and going strong. When working through your own financial rescue for your family, I want these Pearl Spotlights to offer you encouragement to keep going. As you watch these real life budget talks, pay attention to strategies and tips that you can try out with your own family finances. Is there something our Pearl has done that you could adjust a bit to customize for your own family budget? You know what makes you a million more times likely to implement what you're learning in this video today? It's if you're taking notes. I have a free printable for you that you can go and click the link in my description box and download totally for free. Write down what sticks out to you. What action steps can you start implementing in your own real life budget for your family? To make this process a bit more simple, I put together a cute free printable to assist you in taking notes and also making sure that you can take action. Sign up for my free weekly email newsletter by using the link in the description box and you will get access to your free printable. One more quick thing before I introduce you to our Pearl today, Missy. If you're interested in sharing your own story of rescuing your family finances, you can apply by clicking a link in the description box. If you're selected, we'll get to do a one-on-one chat together. Super fun. Remember, you don't need to have paid off like something like crazy amounts of debt or achieved an unbelievable dream. If you have big stories, yes, we want to hear them. But it's also the small wins along the way of our journey that offer so much insight when shared with others. If you are working hard on rescuing your family finances and have had big or small aha moments, that's what I want to chat with you about. Are you feeling inspired to share your story with our Pearl family? Help motivate other Pearls to stop living that paycheck to paycheck life. Again, you can apply by clicking the link in the description box. If chosen, you'll receive an email with further instructions for scheduling a one-on-one video chat. Now, without further ado, let me introduce you to our Pearl Spotlight. You are going to love meeting our Pearl Missy. Another interesting fact about her is that she lives in Canada, and I know we have a lot of Pearls that live up there as well. The cost of living tends to be a bit higher, so I know that her story is really going to be relatable for all of us. Her and her hubby have worked their booties off and made some major sacrifices to be sure that their real life budget is aligned with what their family values most. All right, let's jump into the chat. Hi Pearls, welcome to another episode. I'm so excited because this is part of our whole new series that we have going on where I'm just chatting with one of our Pearls and she's going to share with us her insight, her experience, and what's kind of been going on through her family's financial journey. And I have Missy here today with me.
Hi, everybody. I'm really glad to be here. It's a pleasure to be a part of the Pearl family. So I'm pretty excited. I live in Canada, close to Ottawa, which is the capital of Canada. I have a daughter who is 8 and twin boys who are 6. To get into sort of the nooks and crannies of our journey is sort of when we found out we were having twins, it was absolutely by surprise. We had been trying, but we didn't find out we were having twins until we went to the ultrasound. And it was right then where they said, "Now we see 2." And we were elated because we were really, really trying to have, we had had a bit of trouble having our second pregnancy. So we were elated, but all I could do was math all night long after that ultrasound. And it just, that was sort of the flipping point for us on this journey because our house didn't fit anymore. We had a 2-door for our lives. And you would think that at that time that we would have sort of started on a more of a savings plan, but what we ended up doing is actually spending more. So we actually moved. I was very much on my own, and my husband works for himself in a sense because he's commission based. So he was actually only home 3 days, and then he was back to work, and I was home with 3 kids under 2. So we moved closer. Yeah, we moved closer to the city. We got the bigger vehicle, the bigger house. We doubled our mortgage. We did everything we had to do in order to make life at that time what we felt as simple as possible. And we didn't necessarily go into debt, but what we did is we basically had to strip everything back in order just to afford to live. And we learned a lot in that time. I returned to work after 1 year after having my twins, and I was basically making next to nothing because my daycare expenses were actually more than my $500,000 home mortgage. So we had the mortgage plus we had our daycare expenses, and it just really taught us what we were made of. We had to dig deep, and that's when I started really tracking. And that was sort of the start for us. But then when I started doing some reading, and I felt like we could, if we were capable of this, we were capable of so much more.
Yeah.
And I didn't like the idea that the money we were spending was going into, the big SUV and the big house and and my husband was traveling. So eliminating daycare and not having help wasn't really an option for us. So what ended up happening was we sat down probably for 6 months straight, just going over numbers and numbers and numbers, and how can we make this different, and how can we not be a slave to just paying daycare expenses and keeping our heads above water.
Right.
And what we discovered was that we were willing for my husband to quit his job, change jobs to get him off the road. We sold our house, we sold our car, we sold everything, and we're on a trajectory now that has been a complete 180, and we're hoping to be financially independent in 8.5 years. And we're
that's
saving
exciting.
50%. Yeah, we're at 50% savings of our net income annually. And we feel so much freedom. And it's just, it wasn't like we were already doing these things. We had already established those habits when we had to because we were in survival mode. And now we just get to enjoy that. We get to enjoy it because we see it accumulating in our kids' education plans and in our RSPs, which is equivalent, I believe, to your 401ks, and in our Roth. We have TFSAs here in Canada, tax-free savings accounts, whereas I think you guys have Roths.
Mm-hmm.
So we're using those vehicles. We're just filling up these vehicles, and when we hit our magic number, it's not to say that we wouldn't work, but it just gives us the opportunity to hopefully invest in more in our children's lives at that time as well, being available more for them, and hopefully traveling more with them, and just doing the things that we enjoy. So that's sort of the short story of going from surviving 3 kids under 2 doing what we had to at that time to now just carving out a new path for ourselves that just feels so good and liberating. So it's been good, and we're always learning, and this is what we love about channels like yours, is that I always believe there's room for refinement.
Yes.
And just like Sunday, I saw your video pop up with the spring cleaning of your finances and your budget, and I was like, yep, that's a great idea. Like, it's something that you have to revisit all the time. There's always efficiencies.
Right. And sometimes, like, I don't know how it is for you guys, but for us, like, sometimes you get really comfortable. You're like, oh, we're on this awesome plan and things are good. And then things are easy for us to slip. Like, we're like, oh yeah, we're totally fine. We can buy a $30 whatever from Amazon. Like, that's my guilty pleasure, Amazon.
For sure.
And then all of a sudden, like, those add up too quickly. But that's so awesome that you guys have this plan in place. And you guys are on top of it. Like, your kids are still super young. And so you have this whole life that you're building for your entire family.
Yeah.
Like you said, traveling with your family. Yeah. So I'm curious, what do you think is one of your, what was a big bad habit that you guys had to break in order to stick to your new plan?
100% Costco.
Oh, really?
It was such a love-hate for me.
Oh, I can understand.
Get my head around it. Like, comparing the unit price, because we shop only at Walmart and Costco. And we do Costco once a month, and then everything else is at Walmart, and we do the Walmart pickup, and we also still have price matching.
Ooh.
So that's what those are the 2 avenues that we're still using, but Costco would always throw me off. every month, and then I couldn't keep the rest of the month low enough to fill in the gaps because Costco had consumed so much.
Mm-hmm.
And that, because we're not big consumers to begin with, groceries is by far the number one category that is a struggle for us as a family of 5. But honestly, your method of never going in without a list with projected expenses has renewed my love for Costco.
Yes.
And I'm so grateful because I thought, why didn't I think of this before? Like,
I
it was,
know.
like you had said, just things that, you think you have a plan in place, but there are always efficiencies that can be made. And
Yes.
it's been a game changer for me. And I'm very specific. Like, I have a list that I've created of our go-to items we get at Costco and how they compare all the time to the unit price at Walmart. So I know I'm not getting
Oh.
confused by the size of like oh, of course it's
Yes.
a good deals at Costco.
I know.
You know what? I would say 50% of the time it's not.
I agree.
And then you have to store this stuff. Like,
Yes.
now that we're in it's a normal size home, but we don't have tons. And I don't want a pantry for the apocalypse in my basement. So it's
Yeah.
just nice to know I can go in with confidence and say, okay, I know, these items are worth it for our family. It makes the trip faster. It just, it's really helped us balance out that budget for us, because that's by far I constantly have to revisit our grocery budget. That's where I have to keep a strong hold on it. And that's like all the things, the meal planning, all of it. I'm really, really consistent and no wasting. And it's been good. It's been really good.
That's awesome. And I'm glad you brought that up, because that's such a common area for so many families. And a lot of times people don't even realize
Yeah.
how much money they're spending on groceries. Because
Yeah.
I think especially as like parents, we
Mhm.
think, oh, well, I'm just providing for my kids. Like, we need food in our house. But if you're
Yes.
not planning and going in with like estimated costs, and I
Yep.
love how you have a list with the per unit price so you can
Yeah.
compare it.
Yep.
Because like you said, a lot of people think, oh, it's Costco, it's a great deal. And
Yeah.
a lot of times
Yeah.
it's not a great deal.
Yeah.
And you have to weigh the like
Yeah.
convenience factor to the actual price.
It's true. And on the odd time that I have a little more time, if I'm by myself, I'll even peruse the aisles and be like, okay, that's an item I'd be interested in, but I want to do the research first. I'll just jot it down on the grocery list that I have, like on the backside, and then I can come home and check Walmart online and see whether that's worth buying here or there, So I'm never going in blind, because that was my biggest problem.
Mm-hmm. Oh, totally. Like, now when I think about like how we used to grocery shop and just like
Oh,
or I see people at the grocery store and
yes.
they're just like, well, like in the store, what else do we need? Like, maybe we'll
Yeah.
have this for dinner. And I just like get
Yeah.
anxious
Me
listening to
too.
them. Just
And
like,
now it's the opposite. When the end of the week comes, because we get our groceries on Thursday, when Thursday comes and the fridge is empty and the cupboards are nearly empty, I'm so excited,
yes,
because I feel like this is this is what you want. You want to be able to easily clean down your fridge and bring next week in,
exactly.
I feel
As
like you're
minimal
winning.
waste as possible. And you know
Yes.
what's in there.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
so good. I love
Yeah.
that. So you were talking about how when you had your twins, you guys started doing all of this extra stuff, getting a bigger house, a bigger car. So
Mhm.
what was the point where you guys are like, okay, like we've gotten to this point, but we need to kind of rein it in a little bit and get things under control? What was kind of the thing that put that switch on for you guys, that made you reevaluate what was
Well,
going on?
to be honest, it's platforms like this. When you start reading and seeing, and you can see what you're capable of. If you can see what I'm paying towards daycare every month and a mortgage every month, and I'm not really doing the extras, and I'm not even really necessarily wanting the extras, why wouldn't I put my money to such better use? Like, it
Yes.
seems sort of sad that, I'm paying so much money for these elements that I know can be done more efficiently. Like, it did take a lot of conversations between my husband and I. It was start writing down these numbers and looking at where your money's going, and you realize what you're capable of. Like, I used a lot of online calculators to understand, like, if we took this
Oh.
money from daycare, and if you were working from home and we could eliminate daycare, and I put that money into a compound interest calculator, and to see how that's going to work for us instead of paying someone else. And
Mm-hmm.
thankfully were able to find, my husband's in sales, so he could do that from home.
Yeah.
It just made so much more sense. It just, you can't ignore numbers. Like, it just, when it's right there in front of you in a spreadsheet, I guess I've always felt like my husband and I we grew up in very normal families. We had to pay our own way through education. So we were already like wise enough with our money and our spending that I think it just got to the point where I was tired of throwing it away. And I
Yes.
just felt like we're better than this. We know better than this. We can do more for ourselves. And I really, really want to provide the opportunity for our kids to have help with their education because we didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a big factor for me because when we started it with my daughter, we started an education fund. She was 5 months. And then
Wow.
we rolled that into a family plan, but then we had to stop contributing to that because of the house and because of the daycare expense. And that really didn't sit well with me. And my husband's, commission based, so he doesn't have a pension plan or anything like that. So to not be saving for his future or my kids' future, and I was the only one who had a work plan that I was paying into, it just didn't feel right to me. I knew we could do more, and I knew we were capable of more. So thankfully, like I said, those spreadsheets don't lie. So the conversations and I guess it's hard to accept, like, we had just moved, we had built our own home. So we were literally walking away from a home that we loved, and the car that was nice looking, the SUV that fit our family and all that. And it's hard to say these things don't matter to us and we
Yeah.
value other things more. But I don't regret it for a single second. I am so proud of how far we've come.
Yes, and you
Yeah.
should be. And I mean, I think that's a huge, like, the whole, like, money mindset that's behind this. That's why I always
Yeah.
talk about, like, that part has to come first. And
Yeah.
you guys stopped looking just at your living your day to day. You started
Yeah.
long term, and are like,
Yeah.
okay, like, we're surviving day to day,
Mhm.
but if we actually want to create this life that we have, this, like, dream for our family, what needs
Yeah.
to happen? So
Yeah.
that's huge. That's
Yeah, clear values, like you've talked about before, like really identifying what are your family goals and what are your family values. And if you have a focus on that, there's not too much that's going to get in your way or be able to persuade you to want more than that.
Ooh, yes.
I think, like, there's no vehicle in the world that is going to be more of a value to me, or home for that matter.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so so it sounds like you were the one that kind of brought up the conversation between you and your husband. How did that conversation go? Was he hesitant? It cut out for just a second, but it
Oh,
said
sure.
that you brought it up with your husband, and then you actually, like, showed the numbers. I'm sure that
Yeah.
played a big part too.
Yeah, it was challenging at first, like I had said, because we had moved so recently. We weren't in our new home for even 2 years. It was probably a year and a half we were in our new home. And I realized it wasn't sitting well with me. So we started those conversations. So I think the biggest concern for him was he didn't want to move again so soon. And we had
Yeah.
just bought this car, and, we just set ourselves up, and leaving his job, of course, that he did enjoy. It was a good job. It was a great job. So a lot of really big decisions that are not easy to make, and to make all of them in order to take a leap of faith on something that we're not sure could even turn out.
Mm-hmm.
Was tough, but I think once he digested that, I mean, we're both, thankfully, we have very similar spending habits. So it was just something that and we had to come together on, that to say, like, okay, we're ready to actually physically make these decisions and start. I remember we took in our car and traded it in and bought two. With the one vehicle we had, we were able to buy two lesser cars, like two used
Wow.
vehicles. So we clean swapped,
Yes.
because he had to leave his job, so he lost his company vehicle. So now we needed
Oh.
a second vehicle. Like, just making those decisions was really hard. Putting your house on the market, but yeah, it just took some digesting. I think just a little bit of time and a few of those conversations over a few months, where we could both say, like, no, we want more for our family, and this is going to mean. So it wasn't so much, we were both on board. It just took time to say we're ready to put it into action.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you guys made some big changes, like the house, the job, the car. Um, did it, so your kids were probably pretty young at the time, so maybe it didn't have as huge of an effect on them. But like socially, maybe like your relationships between family and friends, did you guys run into any hiccups that way? Like a lot of our pearls find frustration when they feel like they have to say no to their friends a lot. Did you guys run into that at all?
I think because we were already having to work so hard to pay for our daycare in our house and having twins, people were sort of gracious with us, knowing that we didn't always have, and it's not in our nature to be big spenders either. I think that where I feel there's a difference is that I'm not a big gift giver, and that includes holidays. So I find that's a big one that people and families have to adjust to, is that I don't feel the need to exchange gifts with my siblings or my nieces and nephews, or like that may be kind of harsh, but I would rather get together and bake cookies, decorate them,
Yes.
than buy gifts that we're just going to sit in our kids' closets because that's where they end up. So I think that's where those were the uncomfortable conversations we had to have, is that we didn't want gifts. Like, please don't buy us gifts. And are you okay that we also don't want to get you a gift, but that we'd like to organize a dinner, or even, going to a Christmas parade together, or something that we could enjoy together, and eliminating those needs, the material exchange. I find that's the social part that is still a little bit of a struggle, is that we have to so we've got it down quite a bit where we only buy gifts for our parents now. We're pretty comfortable with that. But it took a while to sort of eliminate the extra gifts of aunts and uncles and nieces and nephews, and even work gift exchanges. To say that you don't really want to participate in those is challenging. But the reality is this is all junk that nobody needs.
Yeah.
And I hate to put it that way, but it's true. Unless it's a consumable, right? Like, if for me, for all the teachers and all the bus drivers, and it's always consumables. Like, we are going to bake for these people, and it's going to involve the kids, and it needs to come from the heart, because there's so much consumerism that I just can't and don't want to be a part of, and that doesn't align with our goals. So yeah, we work really hard at that, and we, even buy things secondhand for our kids in terms of gifts. But they don't know any different. And if I'm judged for that, it doesn't bother me.
Oh,
It really
good.
doesn't.
That's good. And I think that's a really great tip, that like if anyone's in the same similar situation where gift giving, especially around holidays, to, instead of just saying, no, we're not doing anything, but to bring up the topic of like actually like spending time and having these low cost experiences together, rather than just, like you said, trading goods, pretty much is what it comes down to.
It doesn't even mean, I find there's just no meaning in the exchange. So it's really been meaningful, because we're creating new traditions, because now you do certain events with certain family members now, like it's like, okay, now we have the tradition we do cookies with this person, and we do the Christmas parade with that person. And it's actually allowing the holidays to grow in a different way that I think are much more meaningful.
That's so good. That's so good. Yeah, more meaningful and definitely more memorable. Like if you were to ask me, what did so-and-so get me 5 years ago? I'm not going to remember, right?
Yeah.
But if you ask, like, what did you guys do? What are some of your favorite memories? It's never like, what presents did you get? It's always like, what did you do on your 10th birthday? And what did you do for Christmas?
Yes.
That's an awesome tip. Thank you. That's really good. So you talked about how groceries is probably your biggest spending category that you had to overcome. So how do you stay motivated when things start to feel tough, or maybe like a lot of pearls have the like, not that you want to keep up with the Joneses, but you see other people doing things and you're like, man, that looks like fun. But how do you stay motivated to keep on track with where you're headed?
Sure. I think there's no need to eliminate everything at all. I think it's really important, again, if you go back to what's important to your family, and understanding that, like, for us, family vacations are important. It is a priority for us. We do want to make memories. So we make sure that those buckets of things that are important to us are getting filled. Cuba this past Christmas. We're going to
Wow.
Florida this summer. Like we just, when you know that I'm not necessarily depriving myself of everything, I'm just prioritizing where I'm going to place my money so that I can have these indulgences and these memories, then I feel like you don't lose track as easily because you have those special moments or those bigger purchases still to come. And if it's that you want to save for a specific car, or you want to save, I say go for it. It's just that you can't be in all categories. You
Mm-hmm.
have to choose the categories that mean most to you and really enjoy them and savor them and make them so special for you and your family. So yeah, do not deprive yourself and do fill your cup, but don't worry about if the Joneses really like fashion, then allow them to enjoy fashion. If it is travel that you're more interested in, then you really enjoy your travel. But you can't do the fashion and the eating out and the travel and the fancy car. It's that
Right.
choose your battles essentially and just savor them.
Yes. I
And I
love
find too,
that.
like we always have one coming. Like once we get back from a trip, we plan the next one, even if it's 6 months away,
Mm-hmm.
because as long as that carrot is coming, we're pretty happy.
Yeah, like it gives you something to look forward
It
to.
does. It really does.
And what you said is you start planning. I think that's a huge part of it. Like,
Yes.
if you don't plan, then all of a sudden summer's here and you're like, oh man, we want to do something. And then usually last minute things are more
Yeah.
expensive
Yeah.
and it just makes it more chaotic. But if you
Yeah.
take the time to plan ahead, and a lot of times I think like, okay, like this spring break's coming up and I always forget about spring break because we have 3 birthdays right before and it's
Yeah.
Easter and everything. And I always forget. So like if you take that moment, if you're like, man, I wish we could do this for spring break, think, okay, we are going to have to do something at home. Like we'll find something fun to do this
Yeah.
spring break, but let's plan for next year's spring break right now.
Yes. Yeah.
I love
Especially if
that.
you feel like, you know what, this time of year I always feel like I need a break, then
Oh,
start now to plan for next year's, because
mhm.
sometime like summer I find much easier. I don't find I need a vacation in much in the summer because the weather's so nice and we can get outside and there's the pool, but I know that the winter is hard for us.
Mhm.
So if we plan our winter vacation ahead of time, then it's paid for and we look forward to it and it's no sweat.
Yeah. And
It's
how
just
much more,
figuring
sorry, go ahead.
it's just figuring out when you feel you need breaks and then getting about a year ahead of it so that they're paid for by the time you want to go.
Yeah. And how much more enjoyable is a vacation when it's totally paid for
Oh
and you
yeah.
have the finances like set in place. You
Hmm.
don't come home to all this debt. Like
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
like
Because the
really relax.
anticipation of a vacation is almost as fun as going on
It's
vacation.
so true. It's so true.
Yeah.
Totally. I
Yeah.
love that. Thanks, Missy. So, if you could give one piece of advice to our pearls that are maybe going through similar situations where they're feeling like they're just living that paycheck to paycheck life, like they're not looking forward to anything really, what
Yeah.
piece of advice would you give them?
I think first and foremost is you got to start tracking. You got to take your head out of the sand and just
Yes.
start writing it down and take a good look at it and maybe start with the one category you think is probably the easiest to tackle first. And I find once you get a hold of that one category, it's going to snowball into the next category. But you got to start by just taking a look at it and allowing it to come and allowing you to learn. There's no better day to start. There's no easier day to start. But I really believe that you're capable of so much more if you just start with that one category and let that snowball into the next category. Because I guarantee you will surprise yourself. We are capable of so much more than we even realize,
Yes.
and it's so much fun once you get going because then you're looking for more efficiencies and better ways, and it's almost like a game that you're playing. And
Exactly.
there's so much knowledge and information sharing out there. For example, your channel is awesome, and I'm so
Thank
glad
you.
that I found it. And it's inspiring. And when you become a part of that community, that encouragement, like I said, it snowballs from one category into the next category. And the next thing you know, you're realizing dreams you never even knew you were capable of.
Exactly.
So it's very it's powered by your own progress essentially. So
Oh,
it's
that's so
great.
good.
Yeah.
I love that. And that is one thing that's really hard for a lot of people is they're just scared to look
Yeah.
at what's going on. But like you said, if you just start tracking your spending, And I always like to say, like, okay, it's going to be a little bit of a shock at first, but look at it
Yes.
as potential. Like,
Yes.
okay, we were spending $1,000 on food. We could totally fix that, you
Yeah.
know? So like,
Yeah.
it's scary at first, but like you said, take that leap of faith and know that you have the potential to make things better.
Yeah.
So good.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much, Missy. I love your story. I love that you're in Canada because we actually have a ton of pearls that are in Canada. And so
Yeah.
that's great. And thank you so much for taking the time and the courage and the willingness to share your family story with us.
Well, thank you for having me, and keep doing what you're doing. It's wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. Pearls, thank you so much for joining us. I know that you are going to find inspiration and motivation from Missy's story. And we are going to continue on this series. And I will talk to you guys very soon. Bye.
Bye.